fantastic. It continues to be fantastic, knowing you and working with you. And I'm enjoying how it's all unfolding very much indeed. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I'll tell you what I love about it is the magic. The way that the music comes out, the way that people in situations, and it's just like it magically unfolds. What I hate about it is it's totally out of control.
Yes.
But then your life has been quite out of control in a lot of ways, and you've really had a bit of a roller coaster, and how you have turned into such an aware, sane, wise, loving man. I have no idea. So tell us about it, Lee.
Well, I could say all those things about you as well. So, and, I consider myself really to have been blessed so far on this journey. I'm sorry for it to sound so cliche, but that's exactly what it is. It's a journey. And it's about, what I've learned along the way and how I'm able to put those things now into practice. To me, it's futile just having experiences and not knowing what to do with them, not knowing how they are relevant to how you actually live your life now. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to discern what it means to have gone through those things.
And those things include cancer, very serious cancer, where you had cutting edge 21-hour surgery, where they took away your top teeth, your gums, the roof of your mouth, and they totally reconstructed your face with bones and skin from your leg, and was it a vein from your leg to keep your face alive?
Yeah.
And then there's the breakdowns, the suicide attempts, the God knows what have you not been through.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I was going to make it through the breakdown. The cancer bit, as touch and go as that was, I thought the chances that I would survive that were greater than the breakdown that happened.
So tell us
later.
about the cancer first, because I mean this is a story in itself, where one of your eyes was popping out, and they got it wrong, telling you one thing, and you found out it was another.
Well, I was going to the doctor for almost 5 years, and a side of my nose is blocked, and increasingly so. And a couple of friends said that the shape of my face is changing, and I could see in the mirror that one eye was bigger than the other. That was because I had a tumour in the bone running alongside the upper pallet. That was huge. I didn't know at the time.
Wow.
But it was actually beginning to push the eye out through the socket. And I found out that I had this tumour completely accidentally. Going to the hospital about another ailment, they decided to do a scan, full body scan, and mistakenly they lost the scan. 5 months later, I was in the hospital, and the consultant said to me, "What happened about the results of your scan back in October? Now this is March." And I said, "No one contacted me." So she asked me to wait outside, then said somebody will be in touch. 5 days later, I had a phone call. They put this poor doctor in training on the phone to tell me that I had to go and see a surgeon the next day, and to drop everything, that I must go and see him.
Wow.
Then they said to me that I had this tumour. It was later diagnosed as bone cancer, chondrosarcoma, and the treatment was several surgical procedures, but they removed the roof of my mouth, they opened up the face, they inserted a breathing tube, and they put a stomach peg in so that they could feed me and give me liquids and food over the next few months.
That was over months. You were fed like that for months.
And, well, you couldn't get into my mouth. The swelling, I was completely unrecognizable.
Actually, that's another thing. I remember you saying that the swelling of your face was so much that they couldn't screw in your new teeth for 18 months? No,
we couldn't. They could put cotton buds around my lips, but they couldn't put anything in. Everything, it was like really not very pleasant to see.
Listen to you, not very pleasant.
There was no mirrors in the hospital, put it that way, around me, around my bed, and that was deliberate. But anyway, yes, this took a big chunk out of my leg. It was revolutionary, cutting edge, sorry for the pun, surgery. And I'm very grateful to guys in St. Thomas's Hospital, because the care that I had there was absolutely second to none. Still ongoing, 11 years later. Amazing team of people. I owe my life to them. But yeah, so they completely reconstructed my mouth, took all the gums away, and it was a year later they could put the teeth in, the implants in.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Unbelievable. And then 2 stories cross my mind. And pass. Anything you don't want to talk about, say pass. It's just like the men's groups. You don't have to say anything. The 2 stories that cross my mind is the skin from your leg in the roof of your mouth and your hairdresser. That's one story. And the other story was you decided while you were healing to train to be a psychotherapist, and you were walking with your crutches, going to college, and feeling like the Elephant Man. So do you fancy touching on those 2?
Yeah, I mean, there were moments in the humour kept me going through them, and I made sure that it's always been a trait of mine anyway to find humour, where I can to help survive. And my poor hairdresser, he was shocked enough to see, what I looked like. And in the few months after the surgery, when I first ventured out, somebody was coming to cut my hair in the flat in the intervening months. But anyway, so I was telling him about the surgery, and he was, "Are you okay?" And can I get you anything? And I said to him, "Can you do something for me?" I said, "Because they've cut my hair off my leg when they reconstructed my mouth. When they gave me the new mouth, they took the bone and skin from my leg."
Well, so the skin and bone from your leg now was relocated
in my mouth,
into your mouth.
Yeah,
that's where your face came from, or the top of your face came from.
Yeah,
right.
So, and I said, "But the hair's grown back because they shaved the hair on my leg, you see, before they took it off to put it in my mouth." But the interesting thing is that my leg, which was in my mouth, still thought it was my leg. And so it kept growing hairs.
Inside your mouth?
And it was irritating. And so I said to my hairdresser, "Can you give me a bit of a trim in there?" And the boy, he nearly dropped his scissors in shock,
So, God, I guess you'd either laugh or you'd cry and die.
Yeah,
that is heavy shit.
Yeah.
God.
That's right.
Unbelievable. What have you not survived? And then what got into you, considering what a state you were in, that you can't eat, you're being fed by a tube, you've got a hairy mouth inside, and you decide you want to be a psychotherapist?
Well, I decided I was going to study it was 3 months after the surgery. And I did go in on my crutches. It's been something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, basically because I've been through psychotherapy myself. And so I was fascinated with our internal mechanisms, why we do what we do, philosophy, how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves. And also, unconsciously, I wanted to find out more about myself.
Yeah.
And that's a reason why a lot of people become psychotherapists initially.
Yeah.
Because they want to find out why they're so screwed up.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully, if you're lucky, if you've got a psychotherapist, I'm sorry, I'm just giving you the facts. Hopefully, when you do become a psychotherapist, you're evolved enough through the training and your own therapeutic work to find the answers to those questions.
Yeah.
And so...
rather than making it about the other person.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're in therapy, you don't want yourself to be there to fulfill the psychotherapist's desires to find out about themselves.
Exactly.
It's about that part.
Do your own work.
Yeah.
And hold the space for them to do their work rather than...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is a fascinating process being in psychotherapy, if you find a great psychotherapist and you're committed to the work, it is, I mean, I really believe in the potential in psychotherapy and other therapies, but I'm talking from my experience, to transform your life, you know?
Yeah. So tell us about, because I've got this scene, and I remember you telling me about your face being out like the Elephant Man, on crutches, getting to your studies, getting to your therapy. What was it like leaving the house and people staring at you and going public after going through all of this? Suddenly...
It was difficult. It was really, really tough. I mean, one minute... the thing is, it wasn't just linear. It wasn't that everything was shrinking gradually. Sometimes, some days, it'd all swell back up again. And the pain would be there in the face. Even now, 11 years later, there's parts of my neck where I can't, the nerves haven't grown back. It's still... so it was very, very difficult. And it did contribute, all that kind of anxiety, the stress of it, the trauma of that, I think attached itself to earlier traumas and things that happened later. And it, like snowballed, amalgamated into a huge force.
So are you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying that the trauma that you went through then, not only were you in that trauma, but that kind of frequency, that level of emotion kind of brought up past emotion that maybe a lot of people never access because they kind of brick over it and survive it. But because you were there, you had that to deal with as well. It re-triggered that.
Well, I think, this is just my personal view, that is one of the ways in which life works. That a currency of emotion will find other things on that currency to attach itself through. I mean, I had lived most of my adult life and childhood life in a state of anxiety. And as awful as it was what I was familiar with. It was something I knew, it was something I could relate to. And in a very, this is the kind of almost perverse thing about human nature. And I think we find it very often with people that are often in relationships that are destructive or abusive. People go from one relationship like that into another one, and it's a perpetual pattern. There is something that's familiar in those relationships that resonates with one's own image and idea about oneself. And that was, I saw myself, my life, as being about fighting, about trauma, about struggling.
So you're a survivor.
That was my identity.
Right.
Yeah. So, and this, I think that kind of crescendoed, to use a musical term, and I knew that I was heading for something. I'm not sure if I knew it was a breakdown, but I knew something was going to happen. I could feel myself on the verge of this for many years. And following an incident that happened in my own psychotherapy, where everything kind of ruptured, I had the mother of all breakdowns. That was... I still can't find... I mean, it was 6 years ago, this month, actually. 6 years
ago this
month, yeah. And it's funny, because every April, I still have flashbacks from it. And then I realise, it's April, it's around Easter, you know. And I still struggle to find words to put to what that breakdown went, because... And people that have had near-death experiences struggle to find the words. And it's because... it's not a normal state of consciousness. So language can only point to it.
So this is emotional or beyond emotional or a different...
Well, it encompasses everything. It involves... It consumes consumes your emotional life. And it's as if there wasn't a me, I wasn't in operation. There was just trauma and pain of such magnitude that nothing else could get in. A total fragmentation. It's and you just become, you can't work, you can't operate.
To use a technical term, you were just totally fucked.
I was completely fucked.
And you didn't know who you were, what was going on, if you were Arthur or Martha. I can't imagine this place off. It sounds like non-existence, absolute helplessness.
It's like every cell of my body was consumed in terror. Absolute terror.
And who was there with you or for you? Or were you
well, I had a good friend of mine, Maggie, that was there, and my friend Susan and Jonathan, but I was hospitalised as well. And then I was having home treatment instead of going into the psychiatric hospital. And the nurses were coming to visit me daily there because I really couldn't. I remember as I was getting better, thinking, how am I going to get from here to the next room, to the kitchen? And just not knowing how I was going to be able to do it. And it was like a thing where you almost don't exist. That there is only pain and there's nothing else.
So it sounds like you barely had a relationship to your body, to be able to make your body even comprehend moving.
Yeah, I was just an amalgamation of this depth of pain. I think the reason why it matters is because I think when you've had those polarities in life and you recover from it, then you're able to draw upon, as an artist, a really wide tapestry, a palette of colours, of emotions, because it's an extreme. And for me, it's been a blessing to have gone through it, although I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and I say that hand on heart, in the sense of it being an experience on its own. But what it did was it flushed away the earlier trauma. It gave me a new sense of myself. The old was kind of washed away with a fragmentation of myself. The false parts of me, which I'd built up to survive, had gone, the shell. What was left intact was an experience with my raw, authentic self.
So you were stripped right back from the present, the past, anything that you knew about life. You were taken to the edge, beyond the edge. You tried to end it to stop the pain, or what was
absolutely to stop the pain. And there was nothing else to me to live for. It is completely finished. So, and it's funny you should say that about being stripped away, because when I was started to recover, I would feel like, I feel like I haven't got any skin. It's like
what?
It actually feel as if there's layers of me gone, and it's because it's an interpretation of the inward spirit. It's how you feel. It's expressing itself that way to you, you know. So, but in the weeks and months ahead of that, I began to realize that something new was happening. I didn't know what. So
is this something that happened to you or something you did? I mean, how on earth do you recover and start again from that?
I think just letting the process of healing happen. You know, I remember a friend of mine saying to me, and this is a couple of months, and it took me a while to actually be able to speak properly to people, but in the conversation she said to me, try and find one thing a day to look at, a thing of beauty to look at, And I have the most beautiful art in my flat, and they're beautiful to me. And I remember thinking to her, there's nothing beautiful.
It was all dead.
There's nothing beautiful in life.
Yeah.
And but what she said was a good point. And because she kind of dropped that in, and I was, I did respect her. I think it got in there somewhere, and that helped. And I do think really that when you've been stripped away like that, there's a healing that happens to cover over the scar. Sometimes you have to bleed really deeply to let the scar heal. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to uncover the plaster and take the little superficiality sticking plaster off and bleed.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So
wow. And I wonder whether the gift that you bring, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you're almost at the end of completing the Journey Home album, and the journey that I believe, because I've heard most of the album, and my God, what a journey it is through so many different emotions, from the deepest, darkest emotions to elation to angelic. It almost brings the meaning of life together, but surely that has to touch on the meaning of death and non-existence. And the journey that you've described, including your past, including your unconscious, all of it, to be taken on a journey like this, and for us to be taken on a journey like this through the music, through the album, I mean, would you say in a strange way that's why this all happened? So when people hear the music, they can go through their own journeys of clearing, purging out their shadows and getting on their paths and living with spirit or with... You tell me.
I definitely, it's not just me. These are universal themes in life that people experience on one degree or another. I hope that the music will touch people, and I think that when you can find something that resonates with you in the music, in the community spirit of the album, because I'm not doing a lot on it. I'm just going into the studio and creating what I hear that wants to come through.
I remember you saying that sometimes you're woken up in the middle of the night and you have to go to the piano and you just follow instruction, and what comes out from somewhere else.
Exactly.
Now, the good news, sorry to cut in there, the good news, well, we need to go into an ad break, and the good news is on the other side of the ad break, we're going to hear the full version of what I feel is your signature tune. And when I first heard it, we were on the phone and I was sobbing. It's absolutely amazing. So here come the ads. Hold on to your hats. Go and grab your tissues. You're in for a journey.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Stoughton Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Stoughton Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Stoughton's would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in West Cliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
So can you tell from this story that not only is Lee a survivor, but you're foreign, aren't you?
I'm from deep, and I mean deep in the valleys. Yes.
So another picture that I have, tell us about the story, because it's not very often that people get to hear from a coal miner's son. And there's one incident with your father early in the morning.
Yeah, it's funny how these things stand out, isn't it? My father used to come home very early in the mornings, at like 4 or 5 o'clock sometimes. He used to be working down the mines, and he used to always come in and check on me, apparently. I didn't always know because I'd be sleeping. But occasionally, I would know, and I would go downstairs with him, and he'd make breakfast. And there was this time, 1976, so I was 2 or 3, and he picked me up and used to put me on the kitchen unit, you know.
Yeah.
And we had 2 windows in the kitchen, and I can remember vividly looking out and seeing the mountains in Wales, and the sun was just starting to rise, and it was like a spring summer morning, and my father put the radio on, and on the radio came Bonnie Tyler, Lost in France. In the fields the birds were singing. Such a beautiful song, you know, and happy. And there was something so special in that moment. And it's really funny how, and I said to my father, isn't it interesting how, because we were speaking to Bonnie, we were in Bonnie Tyler's house, me and my dad, last year, and I said to him, do you remember that moment 43 years ago? There's that moment in my mind when I can remember the tune of Lost in France coming on, you know, and then for us to be there with her 43 years later, how things, it was like I was getting a glimpse of something to happen, you know, in the future, you know.
And, you know, I think in a way that sums it up for me, is after everything you've been through, not only are you out the other side, but you're bright and sparkly and ready to pass things on to life, to all of us. And again, in the fields, the birds are singing. And what I would love is, like, this is the treat. This is the full version of a track that you wrote called VIA VITAE. And this, for me, is your signature tune because it's got so many emotions and stories and levels and so much depth that it's like we could not do this show without dedicating, and I know 10 minutes is a long time, but my God, hold on to your hats, whip out your Kleenex. We're going to go on a journey. Here's VIA VITAE.
Here were things on my family.
It was as if somebody held a mirror to show a part of me I was unaware.
I was thrown into the darkness, but I let it reveal the richest colors within my soul.
Here were things on my family. Here were things on my family.
Phoned my mother and said, "Happy Refugee Day." And she said, "Yes, we survived." And I stopped, and for a minute, I realised that we had survived. We can stop running. It's over.
And then the idea came to me about it, and it focused on the golden rule. Treat the next person as you wish to be treated yourself.
It was a breakthrough, making my unconscious conscious.
Giving birth entirely naturally to my daughter Sylvia has been a joyful highlight of my life. Sylvia was born with Edwards syndrome, but we were fortunate to be able to spend a short time together as a family. Sylvia died 4 days before Christmas after 2 months and 17 days of life.
Oh
heart, one individual can change the destiny of a nation.
We dive into the waves, moving along this ocean, to the wind and the rain. The sudden rising storm, the calm of summer days, the joy which is entwined with
There came a time when the old world fragmented and made room for the new. I didn't only survive, but I thrived. And I knew that we are in God as the wave is in the ocean.
taking my heart, we fly through the sky, the spirit of love, and love resides within each of our hearts. Whenever we are lost, love will take us home to the sovereign paradise, where you and I abide. Art angels
Shalom.
Glorious.
Absolutely unbelievable. And I only just heard the last bit because if I listened to the whole thing, then I would have blubbed and I'd be useless for the rest of the show. But the way, so there's a radio edit of that, and the first time I heard it, I watched the video as well. I was so messy. But open. It's not sad or bad. It's like burst wide open, heart open messy. And that's my favourite messy. Now, tell us a little bit about the album and about the unfinished tracks, because there are 2 or 3 huge tracks. I mean, I hope I'm not giving the game away by saying it begins with the voice of an angel. So over to you.
Yeah, it begins with the voice of a child saying, I can see you. And the album really is partly my personal experience through the breakdown, the recovery, the transformation, the experience of being able to live in the world, knowing that you can survive all that, and what it means as well to be in relationship with everything that is, and to know that we can positively impact each other and our lives through how we decide we live our lives. See, I mean, my recovery was, in my view, involved people, the divine, and all the forces that go with that.
That's touching life itself.
Yeah. And we are, my favourite quote is, we are in God as the wave is in the ocean. So I believe that the album, what I wanted the album to convey was a celebration of our relationships with each other and what we can do in our lives to positively impact our journey here.
So the album is an experience, an emotional journey into being.
Yeah, it is that, yeah. And it's a raw, unabashed expression of these spectrums of life. The suicide is on there. The thoughts that I had in my head at the time of the suicide is on there. The guardian angel is on there, because I believe that we have angelic forces as well that are with us.
Yeah.
And also the pivotal points, the universal principles, experiences, not just in my life, but inherent in all our lives, are on there. Why I like VIA VITAE, that track you just heard, is because I wanted it to be like a painting, an expression of everyone's pivotal, profound moments in life. Yeah. So people from all different walks of life, all different religious, spiritual persuasions, say something about meaningful points in their lives.
And there's space for all of it. And it's where everyone meets.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So the 2 things, well, just to quickly say as well, that it's time to get a record deal. So you need a deal, so the album, which is almost complete, can be shared with the world. And the 2 things that aren't on there yet are the Welsh Male Voice Choir, and I know your grandmother's on there, but You in Outer Space.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us about.
There's humour in the album as well, obviously, because there's, humour in all our lives, hopefully, but definitely in my life, And so I thought now, as when the album was being created, there needs to be something that expresses this.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, I'll wait and see what happens and what wants to come through, and then I'll just go with it. And so popped into my head was this phrase, photographs from Mars. So the idea is, in a nutshell, that I've gone off the rails, which I did in my early 20s, and I was, doing the partying a bit too much, walking a bit too much on the wild side. But really, I was trying to cover up for the earlier trauma and camouflaging it with substances.
Yeah.
So I'd gone off the planet. I was in Mars.
Yeah.
So I thought, now, to put a spin of humour on this, we could have a video of me on Mars, speaking not in an American accent that you always hear, but my Welsh accent, and saying, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not sending a postcard back, it's too expensive. Can somebody tell me what I'm doing on Mars? And my grandmother, who's 86, we did a video of her.
It was amazing to meet her.
Oh, she's brilliant, because she's the most Welsh person you'll ever meet. Welsh is our first language. And, of course, there's a news flash because the first Welshman has landed on Mars. And it was me, isn't it? So she, in the video, is being interviewed by the news people. And she's saying, Lee bach, come back from what are you doing on Mars? Come back to Mum and I'll make you a nice cup of tea. Come back to the valleys, it's a much better year for you. So.
And that's what it was like, because I was brought up in Fishguard, it's like, you don't want to leave, it's not safe there. It's safe with us.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And you have lived way beyond safety. But would you say that your life was yours, and would you say that your life is yours? Like, what's your relationship to your life? And what's clear for me is clearly you are not your story. You can tell your story, but how did you get to live beyond your story?
Well, this is the thing, when people haven't seen me for several years, they know things about me, and I think they identify me and they ask me questions about these things. What's happened with the cancer? Are you recovered from the breakdown? Or things that I'd gone through. How are you now?
Yeah.
And I don't identify myself in those terms anymore. In fact, this whole thing about identity to me is a very temporal thing.
Yeah.
We all transcend our identity in some way, but the paradox of it is that we dip into identity so that we can have this experience, this human experience.
Yeah.
But who we are, what we are, far transcends any of that.
Yeah, yeah. So could you give, especially considering what an extreme life you've had, could you give the listeners 3 tips of how to live beyond their story, beyond their experience, beyond their mind, beyond their fear, beyond whatever it is? How have you done it, and what can you pass on?
Well, for me personally, what I would say is it's important for me to remind myself to be open to the possibility that vast change could just be around the corner.
Right.
Whatever is happening right now is just temporary,
Right.
I plug in every morning. This is a tip that I do. I do something to plug myself into that part of myself, which is the soul.
Right.
Every day. And it can be meditation, prayer, listening to a piece of music.
Yeah.
So that I can go out into the day reminding myself about who I really am.
Right.
Which is none of the things that really happened to me.
But here and now.
Yeah.
Right here and now.
Absolutely.
And the vastness, the plugging in almost sounds like tapping into life rather than the being, rather than the doing.
Actually, the way that I engage with my life is much more positively informed when I remind myself that I'm not actually, I'm a soul having a human experiences. And there are certain experiences, certain things that I do that give me the experience of that. And that can be like prayer, meditation, listening to music, those types of things, just spending time in nature. So these things help me go out into the world and infuse my relationship with everything.
Brilliant. And tip number 2?
That was number 2. That was number 2.
Tip number 3 then?
Number 3.
Not very good with numbers.
Number 3. Stock up on moisturizers and red wine. In case there's a war. Right? Get your priorities right.
No wonder you stay young and beautiful.
It's your duty to be beautiful. That's right.
And do you know what? The lyrics of that track is "if you want to be loved" or something. But I wonder if it's more, especially listening to your story and what you're saying, is if you want to be love. And it sounds like it's not about from the external, who loves me. It's coming from love. And you have broken it right down and been stripped back into nothingness. And you've come back to be love and to be able to hold the dark and the light and the fear and the everything else. But you've been through the journey and now you're sharing the journey. And what you're also sharing is with the tithing. Tell us about the tithing.
Well, I owe so much to guys in St. Thomas's Hospital, and So 10% of my personal profit from the album is going to the hospital.
That's huge. That's giving back. That's really giving back. So whoever it is that gives you a record deal, they don't need to worry, because this is going to come from your money rather than their money.
And I can say this album is an epic project. Loads of live musicians from all over the world. We've got Brad Jones, wonderful boy soprano. We've got Ffion-Dafis, fantastic saxophonist, or violinist, top-notch musicians. And this has been recorded with great producers. So this is one big project.
And what's that posh piano that you...
Fazioli, handmade grand Fazioli piano.
It's just the dogs.
It is the best. It is just the best. Yeah.
So, what haven't we touched on that we have condensed so much in here? It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom that you feel you want to pass on that haven't been passed on for people who are going through any aspect of what you've been through, whether it's the mental stuff, the emotional stuff, the spiritual stuff, the physical stuff? You've been through the lot. What's the key? What kept you going?
I mean, really, I was thinking about this on my way here today, that it's 6 years today, this month, that I was in hospital, and that it was the darkest time of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe I was going to recover. And I was thinking about how now my experience of life and myself is so vastly different. I suppose if there's one thing that I'm enthusiastic to communicate, and this is through the album as well, it's that there's a place that's accessible within oneself that is really all loving and all knowing. And if you tap into this place a little bit every day, then it gets greater, it gets more powerful. Decisions are made from a higher place.
So you found the beauty outside and you found the beauty inside.
Yeah, the two goes hand in hand. And my experience as well is the effect that nature has on me now, and after my breakdown, it's phenomenal. The way that I experience nature and my sensitivity to it is incredible. And it is because when you get in touch with this sacred place inside, your ability to be sensitive to the sacred outside is augmented.
Yeah.
You know, the two go hand in hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know this? Oh, before I forget, where do people find out about you? How do people follow you and all that modern stuff?
There's a Facebook page, Lee Michael Walton, and I'm regularly posting videos and updates on the album on there.
You've got thousands and thousands of views for a lot of, not just the tracks from the album, but other tracks that you've done on YouTube. What's the YouTube?
Yeah, and YouTube. It's Lee Michael Walton on YouTube as well.
Right.
Yeah, there's a great community spirit on the Facebook. There's about 14,000 people, I think, now, 14,000 following, and I engage every day, and I love to hear people's responses to the music, and
people really feel your music. The reaction to your music, it's not like a reaction to music. I've seen people who almost feel like there's a place for their heart. There's a place where their soul's been touched, where their spirit comes alive. To go back to the suicide thing, this is really, really important to me, and so many people that I've worked with, is when people are in that space, and the place that you've been, where this hurts. I've tried everything. It's always been like this. It's always going to be like this. I want it to stop. The most important thing that I really, really want to say is all things will pass.
Yeah.
Stay with it. Let it pass. It won't always be like this. This is just part of the journey home. Stay with it. Breathe. Breathe it past. Don't hold on to it. Don't get in the head. Don't try and fix it. Don't do the what's wrong with me. Don't, just breathe it past and connect. Is like, for example, with the men's groups, there are two sides to it, I'd say. One is self-awareness. The next one is connecting, not just with self, but with other people. Connect. Pick up the phone, whatever it is. Connect with nature, like you said. Connect with music, but get back connected. So I always love hanging out with you.
Likewise.
It's always the biggest adventure, the biggest laugh. It's the best. I'll never forget when we did the Christmas track and we unpacked all your decorations to make the studio look like a Christmas home. And there was this, like, half a mince pie.
Yeah.
Now that's Lee's shadow.
From last year.
And he ate it. No, he
I didn't. You ate it.
Right. We have come to the end. Or is it the beginning? Yes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You have been listening to Lee Michael Walton, and I'm Kenny Mammarella D'Cruz. Men Speak Radio loves being on the men's radio station, loves Lee and your story and everything you've brought to us, and it's time to say goodbye.